Hello and welcome back to Overbooked. I'm Amanda and today we're doing my July wrap-up. Alright, so July was a pretty good reading month, I'd say. We did good. I recently was trying to find some of my favorite books this year that I've read. And I really haven't read that standout, I haven't read a lot of standout books this year. I feel like 2021 is really turning into a disappointing reading year, to be honest. So it's kind of a bummer, but I think this month we changed some things around and we read some good ones. We did. We finally did it. So let's hear about them. So the first book that I finished in July was The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. So this is a historical fiction book that looks at two slaves in the South who are gay and in love, and it's a beautiful relationship, to be honest. And it's interesting because in the beginning of the book, really not anyone on the plantation, it's said that no one really cared that these two were more than close, more than friends, that seemed that they were, in a relationship. There was no one, it didn't really bother anybody. But then another slave on the plantation wants to gain favor with the master and requests to start running a Sunday church service for the slaves. And he starts to point accusations at these two and how what they're doing is wrong, essentially, to gain his own personal favor. I don't think he personally thinks it's wrong. I think he's just using that information as leverage, which then we we see the outcome and the repercussions of those actions unfold in the book. And we also get to see a lot of different characters' perspectives throughout this book. The two men who are, in love and in a relationship, and the man who is running the Sunday service, and then a lot of other characters throughout the plantation. And it was a very, very interesting read. I thought that it was really good, and I was just really moved by a lot of the things that were happening throughout the book. But I will say that I thought the pace of the book was a lot slower than I thought it was going to be. And it was hard for me to pay attention to the book. And there were some parts where it was harder than others, where there were some parts where I was just enthralled and just so excited and, into the book. And then there was other parts where I, really had to remind myself to pay attention to what I was reading. I also thought I was just very confused at the end. I couldn't really follow what was going on. And I just kind of wish maybe the ending I wouldn't have minded a longer book, maybe, if the ending would have been more explained or fleshed out. But it was just kind of hard to tell what was going on. And I think that was probably, reader error on, partially me. So that's no hard knock on the book. I still found it really good, really beautiful, and I just think that it was just a really good book. And I haven't seen anything like that topic anywhere else, so I thought it was a really unique topic, and I thought that was really good. But I'm interested to hear what, if you've read The Prophets, what your opinions and thoughts were on it, because I think I'm still trying to work through my own thoughts and feelings a month after reading it. Oh my god. So the next book I read was Black Buck by Matteo Ascopour. This was one of the books I also just didn't really super love, but I was super intrigued throughout the entire book. I could not put this thing down. It was actually a really, just fascinating page turner. I thought it was just really, really good. Intriguing wise. So we follow our main character who goes by Buck, and he works at Starbucks when I don't even want to say affluent, but a really businessy white guy comes in, and Buck all of a sudden decides that he wants to sell him on a different drink that he usually orders, and he succeeds, and so the man offers him a job. And so Buck is thrown into this all white company that and they're a sales company. This I think I mentioned this in one of my vlogs, this company that he works for just gave me such bad MLM vibes and just toxic vibes. It was just gross, and this is why I did not go into sales. So Buck is immediately just thrown into this world, and just engrossed into it. And we follow like his journey of being, you know, this guy who worked at Starbucks, had all of these things in his life, and now he is thrown into this like career-driven, never-ending work career life, essentially. And he kind of just follows his story from there. And there's just like a lot of things that happen. Like, I don't really know, that sounds so vague, like what I just said, but there's just so many things, literally so many things that happen in this book that I'm just like, that I don't want to give away, because they were all like you're just like, what the fuck is happening right now? Because you're just like, what is going on? This book, I guess, is supposed to be satire, which I have not confirmed yet. I'm sure it is, because some of it is just unreal. Like, it's unrealistic that these things would happen, and just crazy. Or maybe not real. I don't know. I guess, I don't know. The toxic white energy, oh, for sure, definitely possible. But there's some other things that I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It was just crazy. The thing that I could not fathom was just Buck's like 180 turn of his like values and like where his like loyalties lie. That was bizarre to me. I even satire, I was like, that's weird. I don't know. The thing that just really did, like, I really sank the book for me essentially was I just didn't like Buck's view or treatment of women throughout the book. Like, if you weren't like a motherly figure caring for him, or a beautiful woman that he could love and, you know, finesse and like do things with, like this comforting thing, then you just like weren't relevant. And the only other woman that like is a main character is gay, so unattainable to Buck, and just like described as like somebody that was not beautiful, essentially, and he described as a sister. So again, someone who is like this family caring figure to him. There was really no other females in this book that had any kind of power outside of Buck, and it was kind of sucks. Kind of sucked. Wasn't a fan of that. But I will say, like, like I said, the story kept me intrigued. It was very fascinating. So if you haven't read it yet, you know, check it out and see for yourself what you think. So the next book was This Changes Everything, Capitalism versus the Climate by Naomi Klein. And I listened to this on audio. It was a very, very long audiobook. So, oh my God, it's so long. I would say that I liked this book, and I thought it had really good information and was important, but I don't know if I super loved listening to it or loved it in general. Like, I think I mentioned, I touched on this in my vlog, but like in this book, and when talking about climate change, I don't think that I don't think you can be over dramatic, or like climate change is very real. We should all be taking it very seriously. We should all be doing something about it. But unfortunately, there is a lot of people who do not like being talked to about climate change when they don't think it's real, and they won't take you seriously. And there's just so many people who are just, that butt heads about it. And I think that I might just get a ton of hate for this, but in my opinion, I think we have to be very, very careful about how we talk about climate change and how we talk to people about it, because this book, while very relevant and had great information, the tone, like, it sounded like we were being talked down to, I was being lectured, or like if I didn't believe every single thing this person said, then I was just completely wrong and an idiot. So, and I'm not saying that I disagreed with anything that she wrote. I think that made it hard to listen to 15 hours of an audiobook, but I will say that, it's very important that we recognize that these things are not going away, and things are only going to get worse if we don't do anything about it. So, I don't know. It was interesting. She offered a lot of unique perspectives, her own personal perspective, experiences. Do I think it should have been 15 hours? Maybe not. But I thought it was interesting and enjoyed listening to it, and I got, I got some stuff out of it, so it was good. So the next book I read for my performance goals at work. Not me adding reading into my performance goals at work. So I read Lead from the Outside by Stacey Abrams, How to Build Your Future and Make Real Change. So Stacey Abrams just, talks about how to, really build your future and make real change and how to lead from the outside. That's really what it is. But she talks about how, being a minority, being Black and a woman, and how like the barriers that she faced to get to where she is today, and how she overcame those and how she's still overcoming those, and how, minorities or women today can try to tackle those things themselves. And I just thought a lot of it was really interesting and just really well just told and great advice. And I think a lot of the things that I really liked out of this book that she talked about was like, we can't fear fear, or like we can't let fear get in the way of doing something, like, which a lot of times is like we're just hesitant to do something because we're scared of what the outcome's gonna be, but sometimes you just have to do it to know what's gonna happen. And we can't also be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are gonna happen, and we kind of just have to like let ourselves make mistakes. And when we make a mistake, we just have to own up to it and be like, this is a mistake I made. And it's better to quickly say like, hey, I messed up. What can I do to fix it? Than to just keep making the same mistake over and over again because you're too scared to admit that you did something wrong, which I have found, to be very true in my work life. Like, just, it's way better to get ahead of something that you did wrong and just tell somebody like, hey, I messed up. How do I fix this? Than to just sit there and wait for somebody to find out about it. And yeah, so she just had a lot of great advice, a lot of stuff that she talked about, how she handled stuff, how a lot of her friends handled stuff, and it was just really good. So I think if you're a female, minority, or whatever, if you're just looking for, career advice, I think that this was a great read, and I definitely recommend it. And finally, I read Anxious People by Frederick Backman, which is probably gonna be one of my favorite books this year. I love Frederick Backman. I loved Beartown. I loved A Man Named Ov. I liked the sequel to Beartown. I loved it. I love it all. Those are actually the only books I've read by Frederick Backman, and now Anxious People, but I know he has other books that I've been meaning to get to, but I loved Anxious People. It was so good. 5 stars. So Anxious People is, how do I say that? It's funny how to describe it. So we follow a lot of characters in Anxious People. And we follow one of our characters who is really just down on their luck, and decides that they're gonna rob a bank. And then when that doesn't work out, they take people hostage. So the other characters in this book are the people who are taken hostage and the 2 police officers who are trying to solve who did this and what's going on. And they all, like, each character has something that's going on in their lives that's, making them just like, giving them a hard time, making them feel anxious, I guess, to a certain extent. And all of these things actually kind of, weirdly enough, like, bring a lot of them together. And it's just a really, really great character development, character interwoven book, and I just love it. It was so good. Yeah. And I think that this is one of those books that I really appreciated more coming out of the pandemic, because I think we all went through our own hardships, which, I mean, outside of the pandemic is true still, but I think a lot of us went through a lot of even harder things or just difficult things during the pandemic, and we're all kind of struggling internally with our own things. And I think a lot of that, sometimes if we kind of just talked about those things out loud more, I think we would find a lot more reasons to connect and find similarities between each other and give each other a lot more grace and just, breathing room and stuff. So it was just really good. I really recommend Anxious People. I know, like, everyone else and their dog has probably already read it because it's been out for a while now and I'm just very behind, but it was very good. So good. Okay, so those were the books that I read in July. It's now August. Holy fuck. So here we are. And I hope that August brings me a lot of great books. I've checked out a lot of good books in the library recently, so I'm really excited. And yeah. What was your favorite book that you read in July? What are you looking forward to reading in August? And have you read any of the books I talked about? What were your thoughts on them? I'd love to hear them. And as always, if you like this video, hit that thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe. And I will see you guys next time.